With decades of experience in security, law enforcement, and school safety, our next guest is on a mission to prepare us all for unexpected violence. It's a scary reality that he writes about in his book, Education in a Violent World, a practical guide to keeping our kids safe. Dr. Steve Webb was one of a few specialists invited to a recent tour of Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. He joins us now to talk about what he shared. How's it going?
Great, thank you.
It's such a heavy topic, but something we have to talk about. And I want to start with this. Tell me about your experience when you went to Stoneman Douglas.
Certainly. Well, it's very difficult, nearly impossible to describe the emotions that were around at that time when you walk into a crime scene that was just frozen in time. I mean, I'm so honored to be invited to be there, but I was invited by Max Shackman, who lost his son, Alex, in that tragedy that day. And to hear him speak and want to make sure that the message gets out. How many instances that we had where we could have prevented that? And he wants the world to know, and that's why I'm here today. And I thank you for that.
Well, and I want us to be able to learn from this. What are the lessons, you know, from your experience with Parkman? And I know you wrote about it in your book. What can we take away from that?
Well, certainly when we walk through the doors of Building 12 and when you work through the emotions, the one thing I took away from that was, you know, the media really rushed to a lot of different assumptions about that. But once we heard from the state's attorney's office and we found out all of the things that person did that we could have caught, that was actually caught, but their minds would not wrap around the fact that he was there to do harm to children. If their minds would have been trained like they've done with their bodies, you know, with lockdown drills and all of the things that schools try to do to harden their facilities, if they would have trained their minds daily, they would have prevented that incident.
Wow, and it's almost scary to think that, yeah, it could have been prevented. Those lives didn't have to be lost. And you speak, and you do different speaking engagements with people about this. How can someone go about booking something like that?
Well, if they go to my website, drstevewebb.com, drstevewebb.com, they can reach me through that. But I want people to understand that, you know, we go through lockdowns, we go through different drills at schools, but it's kind of like the fish story. If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. That's the same way with training. We want to train them in one day and expect that group, you know, we've trained that group to go out and do what they're told to do. But if you train them how to train others, everywhere they go, now you've trained a generation. And that's what I try to do with my speaking.
With your speaking, and then of course as well with your book. And I'm sure that parents that are watching may be interested in getting their hands on the book. How can they go about doing that? Well,
it's at every major bookstore, but you can go to Amazon. It was a bestseller on Amazon, so you can go to Amazon and download the book there.
All right, one key takeaway that readers will find from the book, if you could share one more thing.
The fact that as we age, we start separating ourselves from the world that these children are living in. And that's what I was doing. And that's why I researched and wrote the book. I was separating myself from the social world because the social world was so big with social media. We can't do that as responsible adults. We have to care for our children in the world that they're living in, not expect them to grow up in the world that we grew up in.
That's wise words. Dr. Steve Webb, thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. And for more information, you can visit his website, drstevewebb.com, or call 1-877-453-SAFE. Daytime will be right back.